The gift no human should accept. The twin suns hung low in the sky of Varka 7, casting orange light over the dusty slave market. Voices, loud guards shouting, traders laughing, and aliens chained like animals lined up on display. Captain Jarin stood, tall among them, a human dressed in simple armor, covered with travel dust and scars earned in battles no one wanted to talk about. He had just ended a brutal fight near the northern waste and brought peace between two warring alien tribes. Something even the Galactic Council had failed to do for 10 years. As a reward, the Varkans gave him something they believed he would enjoy more than medals or gold. They dragged a chained alien girl to his feet. Her knees bruised, her skin pale and dirt-smeared. Across her cheek, her wrists were locked in heavy metal cuffs that made small cuts on her blue skin. Each step she took made the crowd cheer as if this was some kind of sport. The slaver shouted proudly, "This is for the brave human warrior, a slave, girl untouched, obedient, perfect for any use." Jarin did not move at first. His eyes locked on hers. She did not beg or cry. She just stared back with hollow, tired eyes, as if she had already died inside and was only waiting for her body to follow. The crowd expected him to laugh or nod or take her away with a satisfied smirk like many warriors before him had done. But Jarin surprised them all. He slowly bent down to her level, looked into her eyes and said, 4 quiet words. "You are free." Now, silence spread like wildfire. The slaver's smile froze. The crowd murmured, confused, unsure what joke this was. No one had ever rejected such a gift before. It was dishonor to the host, disrespect to the Varkan tradition. She blinked, her lips trembling, her mouth open to say something, but no sound came. Jarin stood and faced the slaver unlock her chains. The slaver frowned. "That is not how it works. Human, unlock her, or I will break them myself." Jarin said, his voice low, calm, but deadly. "You dare insult us?" The Varkan chief roared, stepping forward. "We offer you treasure and you spit on our kindness. This is not treasure." Jarin said, "She is a person." The guard stepped in, ready with blasters drawn. The market turned from celebration to tension in seconds, but Jarin was faster than expected. He drew his laser torch, and in a flash the chains were cut, and the girl stumbled free into his arms. Gasps echoed around them. She touched her wrists as if unsure the pain was real, or if this was some strange dream. She looked at him again, trying to understand why he would do this. "You are not a thing," Jarin said softly as he held her steady. "You are not a reward." The slaver yelled, "Seize them!" They stole royal property. Jarin held the girl close and fired a flash grenade at the ground. Smoke filled the market. People screamed, chaos erupted, blaster shots fired in the air. And in that confusion, Jarin ran with the girl in his arms, disappearing into the narrow alleys behind the slave tents. They ran until the shouts were gone, and only the sound of heavy breathing and pounding hearts remained. They stopped in an abandoned warehouse, shadows hiding them from drones above. She sat on the floor, shaking, not speaking, not looking at him. Her hands still curled, as if the chains were still there. Jarin looked around, then gave her water from his flask. She did not drink it. She only stared at it like it might explode. "What is your name?" he asked gently. She didn't answer. Her lips moved, but no words came. She looked broken. "You don't have to talk right now," he said. "But you're safe with me." Safe. That word echoed in her mind like something alien, something forbidden. She didn't know if she could believe it. But for the first time in what felt like forever, she did not feel pain. She did not feel orders pushing her to obey. She felt confusion and warmth, and something strange in the way he looked at her. Jarin sat near the door, watching the alley outside. Weapon ready, the girl slowly crawled to a corner, curling into herself as if trying to disappear. Jarin did not touch her again, did not speak again. He just waited. And deep in the silence of that forgotten warehouse, something began to change between them. Something quiet and invisible, but powerful. The moment when a stranger chooses not to hurt, but to heal, when a girl once sold like a thing is seen by someone as human. And far above them, across the skies of Varka 7, a small red light blinked on a tracker had activated, and danger was already flying their way. Would they survive it? Would she ever trust him? Would he ever learn who she really was? Only one thing was certain. The story of the chained girl and the human who called her free had only just begun. Her name was not Slave. The sky outside the warehouse turned dark with nightfall. But Jaren did not sleep. He watched the girl quietly, her back pressed against the wall, eyes open but empty, like someone waiting to wake from a nightmare that never ended. Her wrists were red where the chains had been, her arms thin from hunger, her lips cracked and dry, but still she made no sound, no movement, not even to drink the water he had left near her. Jaren stayed near the door, his rifle across his lap, always alert. He had been a soldier. Most of his life and trust was something earned, not given, but something about her silence was louder than any scream. It pulled at something deep inside him. "You don't have to be afraid," he said gently, the words soft like a whisper. "I'm not going to hurt you." No reply. He looked away, giving her space. Maybe she needed time. Maybe she thought this was all a trick. Maybe she believed kindness was just the first step before cruelty. He had seen too many slavers act like that. Smile first, then strike later. He sighed and reached into his pack, pulling out a ration bar. Not much, but enough to survive. He slid it across the floor toward her. It stopped near her foot. Still nothing. An hour passed, maybe more. Then, finally, her hand moved. She picked up the bar slowly, carefully. Like it might be poisoned, she smelled it. Then took a bite. Her eyes never leaving him. Jaren smiled a little. Not too much, not to scare her, but enough to show her he was glad. The next morning, the city patrol searched every street. Loudspeakers calling out Jaren's name, wanted posters on every wall. A reward was offered, dead or alive. Mostly dead. Jaren knew they had to move. So he took her to an old fuel station outside the city where his small ship was hidden under broken parts and rusted junk. She followed him without speaking, always a few steps behind like a shadow. They entered the ship and locked the doors. Jaren turned to her and said, "We'll rest here one night, then fly out tomorrow, somewhere safe, do you understand?" She nodded once, her eyes studying everything around her. He pointed to the small bunk bed. "Take that one. It's clean and warm. I'll sleep on the floor." She looked confused. "You're giving me the bed?" "Yes," Jaren said. "It's yours." She stood there a long time, then finally said in a soft voice, not used in years, "My name is Nara Jaren." Froze. It was the first time she spoke. The first time she offered something of herself. Not forced. Not taken. Not stolen. "Nara," he repeated softly. "That's a beautiful name." She looked down, her fingers shaking slightly. "My name was taken. They called me things, pet cargo property. I forgot who I was until now." He nodded slowly. "I'm sorry they did that to you, but I won't." She sat on the bed now, holding the blanket like it was treasure. Her eyes watching him with confusion mixed with fear. And something new. Something like curiosity. "Why did you help me?" she asked finally. Her voice quiet, almost afraid to hear the answer. "Because you were hurting," he said. "And no one deserves that. Not you. Not anyone." She stared at him like she had never heard such words before, like they were from another world. A better world. The night was quiet, but not peaceful. Jaren knew someone was tracking them. The explosion from the slave collar had activated something, and the slavers would not let their property go easily. He stayed up checking systems, readying the ship for launch. But in the corner of the room, he saw Nara watching him. Not scared, not angry, just watching. "You should sleep," he said. She nodded slowly, then asked again softly, "You don't want to sell me?" Jaren blinked. "No, never. You don't want to use me?" "No," he said again, more firm this time. "I want you to be free to choose your own path." Her eyes filled with something strange, something fragile, like hope that didn't believe it was allowed to exist. She whispered, "Thank you." The next morning, Jaren woke to find Nara already awake, sitting near the control panel. Studying it with careful eyes, her fingers tracing the buttons, like she had done it before. "You know ships?" he asked. She nodded. "I trained with command teams years ago before I was captured. So you were military too? Royal Guard?" She said slowly, her face darkened by memory. Then silence. He didn't press more. But now, he knew there was more to her than chains and pain. She was someone powerful. Once. Someone dangerous and honorable. And he could see that spark slowly returning in her. Just as they prepared to launch, a red light flashed on the console incoming tracker. Signal. "They found us," Jaren cursed under his breath, and Nara stood beside him. Calm, sharp. Her voice stronger. "Then we don't run. We fly." As the engines powered up, and the ground shook under them. Nara took the co-pilot seat beside Jaren. Her eyes forward, her body steady. She wasn't a slave anymore, and her journey back to herself had just begun. The hunt begins. The ship blasted into the sky, engines roaring as dust and broken metal flew in every direction. Below, the fuel station vanished behind them. Jaren gripped the controls while Nara sat beside him. Eyes sharp, hands steady the tracker. Warning light blinked again and again. Someone was following them fast. Jaren looked at her. "You sure you're ready for this?" She nodded. "I've been hunted before. I won't freeze again." The ship dodged through low clouds, speeding toward the rocky canyons of the Zarnak Belt, where sensors get scrambled and signals vanish. Bounty hunters rarely followed people there, because even machines got lost. "We'll hide in the canyons," Jaren said. "But it'll be tight. Then I'll guide us." Nara replied, her voice calm, her hands already on the nav screen. She was no longer silent, no longer afraid. She moved with the smooth control of a trained warrior. Jaren couldn't help but glance at her. Every now and then he remembered her from just a day ago, chained, broken, barely speaking now. She was leading him through a maze of deadly cliffs like she was born in space. Suddenly, a blast rocked the back of the ship. Alarms blared. "They found us," Jaren said, clenching his jaw. A bounty ship flew close behind, painted black with red spikes, its cannons glowing, ready to fire again. A voice came through the comm: "Surrender. The stolen cargo, or be destroyed. This is your last warning, cargo." Jaren muttered angrily. "She's not cargo." Nara stood quickly. "Give me the turret. I can shoot." "No way. You just got free. I'm not putting you in danger." She looked at him cold and focused. "You said I could choose. I choose to fight," before he could stop her. She was already climbing up the ladder into the upper turret seat. The gun powered up under her control, her hands locked onto the enemy ship. The next blast missed them by inches. Then Nara fired back 3 perfect shots, hit the enemy's wings, and sent the bounty ship spinning, smoke pouring from its side. "Nice shooting," Jaren said as Nara slid back down. "It'll come back." She said, "That one's a tracker drone. It won't stop until we're dead. Or captured. Then we keep flying," Jaren said, fast and far. They flew deeper into the canyon, the walls around them glowing with strange blue minerals that blocked sensors for a while. It felt quiet, peaceful even. But Jaren knew it wouldn't last. He glanced over. "You always this good in a fight? I was trained to protect a queen." she said softly. That means you were important once, was loyal. She replied, not important, not anymore. He didn't argue. She wasn't ready for praise or pity. She just needed someone to stand with her, and he would do that, even if the whole galaxy came chasing. Soon their fuel warning lit up. Jaren sighed. We need to land somewhere. Fast, Nara pointed at a small blinking mark on the map. There's an old smuggler's dock hidden in the rocks. I used it once long ago when I was escaping someone else. You've been running a long time, haven't you? She nodded. And I'm tired of running. They landed carefully inside the dock. The ship hidden under a thick curtain of stone and vines. The air was thin, the shadows deep, but it was safe for now. They stepped outside, stretching, breathing the cold cave air. Nara sat on a nearby rock, staring at the stars between cracks in the stone. Jaren sat beside her. You okay? She looked down at her hands. They made me forget who I was. Made me believe I was nothing. But you're not nothing, Jaren said, his voice firm. I know, she said, but I only remembered after you cut the chains. He stayed quiet for a moment, then asked, what happened to your people? They betrayed our queen, she said quietly, and those of us who stood with her were sold or killed. I was captured defending her last breath. I failed her. You didn't fail her, Jaren said. You survived, and now you're free. She turned her eyes to him. And now, what am I supposed to be? Whatever you want to be, he said. That's the point of freedom. A silence fell between them, not heavy, not sad, just thoughtful. Then a strange buzzing came from her wrist. Nara looked down at a small mark under her skin, glowing faintly. She touched it and frowned. It's not just a tracker, she whispered. It's a message. From who I don't know, she said, but it's coded in Royal Guard language. It means someone else survived, someone who knows I'm alive. Jaren stood quickly. Then we need to find them. Nara looked up at him for the first time with something like hope in her eyes. Not yet. We need answers first. Like what? Like why they wanted me kept alive but silent, she said. Jaren felt a chill run down his spine. He realized something dangerous was hiding under all this. Something big. The chains were broken, but the truth was still locked on a way, and someone out there wanted it to stay buried forever. The collar that screams. The old smuggler's dock was silent, cold, hidden under layers of stone and shadow. But inside Jaren's ship, tension filled the air like smoke. Nara sat near the console, staring at her wrist where the strange mark glowed faintly, the message from the hidden implant still flashing in ancient Royal Guard code. She hadn't said much since decoding it, only that someone knew she was alive, someone powerful enough to use encrypted signals and small enough to stay hidden from the slave network. Jaren watched her closely, her body still strong but her mind far away, lost in memories she hadn't touched in years. Do you think it's a trap? He asked quietly. Maybe, she whispered, but it could also be the last piece of my past, the part they tried to erase. She stood and paced the floor slowly, her bare feet moving softly over the metal panels. I was loyal to the Queen, but I was also witness to something I wasn't supposed to see. What did you see? Jaren asked. Nara paused, her hands clenching at her sides. Before she died, the Queen gave me something, a memory crystal with names and secrets. She told me to run, told me to hide it and never let the traitors find it. Do you still have it? Jaren asked. Nara shook her head. They searched me, they beat me. They scanned every part of my body. I thought they took it, but they didn't kill you, Jaren said slowly. That means they were afraid of what you knew. Nara nodded. They wanted me quiet, not gone. Suddenly her body jerked forward. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. She clutched her neck as red sparks lit up the scar where the collar used to be. She fell to her knees, her entire body shaking. Jaren jumped forward, grabbing her shoulders. Nara, what's happening? She gasped out one word. Code. He looked at the console. The implant in her wrist was pulsing fast, glowing hotter. The skin around it burned. It wasn't just a tracker anymore. It was a weapon. Jaren dragged her to the medbed, quickly grabbing tools and wire cutters. Hold still, I'm getting it out. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. Her fingers clawing at the panel under her. She didn't cry out. Not even once. Jaren's hands moved fast but careful. The implant was buried deep near the bone, a kill switch hidden in her body since the first day she was captured. With a deep breath, he sliced the skin and pulled the tiny device out. Sparks flew as it hit the floor, then exploded in a burst of red light, filling the room with smoke and burning heat. Jaren flew backward, hitting the wall, his ears ringing. The ship rocked on its landing struts, systems flickering. When the smoke cleared, Nara lay still, eyes closed, blood dripping from her neck. Jaren crawled over to her, heart pounding. He pressed his fingers to her pulse. Faint. But there. He lifted her gently, placed her back on the medbed, and started sealing the wound. Her skin sizzled under the scanner, but he didn't stop until it closed. Nara didn't wake up. Not after an hour. Not after 2. She's in shock, Jaren said softly, sitting beside her like a soldier beside a fallen comrade. You're strong, Nara. You've come this far. Don't stop now. He stayed awake all night talking to her, telling stories from Earth about oceans and coffee and strange dogs with 3 legs. He told her about his old crew, his first ship, how he almost quit space travel because he didn't believe anyone out here was worth saving. Until now. He watched her chest rise and fall, listened to the steady beep of the monitor, and waited. At some point he fell asleep, head resting beside her hand. When he opened his eyes again, her fingers were brushing his hair gently. He blinked. She was awake and smiling. You talk too much, she whispered. Jaren let out a breath and laughed. I thought I lost you. Not yet, she said. You scared me half to death. She looked down at her bandaged neck. What happened? You had a kill switch inside you. Someone sent a code to activate it. I pulled it out just in time. She nodded slowly. Someone's desperate to keep me silent. Which means you're more dangerous than we thought. She sat up slowly, wincing but steady. That message we saw earlier, the one from the Royal Guard. You think it's real. I think it's our only lead. Then we follow it, Jaren said. But this time we go prepared. Nara stood beside him, stronger than before. The pain hadn't broken her. It had sharpened her. She wasn't hiding anymore. Now she was hunting. As they powered up the ship again, the stars above seemed colder than before. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, someone watched their screen flash red. Subject 9 is still alive. A voice whispered from the shadows. Send everything we have. His voice woke her. The ship flew through dead space, quiet and dark like a graveyard of forgotten stars. Nara sat in the co-pilot seat, her body still weak but her eyes sharp, her fingers tracing the controls while Jaren flew steady through the black. Hadn't spoken much since waking up, just short replies or nods, as if something inside her had changed, something heavy that still sat on her shoulders. You sure you're okay? Jaren asked again, keeping his voice low, gentle. Nara didn't answer at first. She stared at her reflection in the dark glass, a face she barely recognized anymore. Then she said quietly, I don't know what I am now. You're alive, Jaren said. And that's enough for me. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. But something in her gaze softened. They were headed toward the last signal location, the one from the message in her wrist implant. A ruined moon called Illis 3. No one lived there anymore. The ground was broken, the sky covered with dust storms. But if anyone wanted to stay hidden, that was the perfect place. Jaren didn't trust it, but he knew Nara needed answers and he wasn't going to leave her alone again. As they landed, the ship shook from heavy winds, clouds of brown dust slamming against the hull. Jaren handed Nara a breath mask and took one for himself. They stepped out into the wind. Nara wrapped in a long cloak, her eyes scanning every rock, every shadow she remembered. This place she had fought here once long ago during the fall of the Queen's empire. They found the ruins of an old outpost half buried in ash and rubble. Nara walked straight to a broken wall and knelt, pulling away the stones like she knew exactly where to look. "How do you know this spot?" Jaren asked, watching her closely. "Because I was here before the end." She said, "This was where the Queen died." She uncovered a small metal box hidden deep under the ground inside. It was a black crystal glowing faintly with royal energy. Nara held it in her hands, like it was a lost child, and her eyes filled with tears. "She told me to protect this," she whispered, "to give it to someone I trust if I ever found one." Jaren stepped closer and reached for her hand. "Do you trust me? I want to," she said. "I'm trying." Before he could say more, the ground shook, a deep rumble rising through the rocks. Then a sharp sound echoed from the skydrop ships. "They're here," Jaren growled, pulling Nara behind the wall. "Stay low." 3 black ships landed near the ruins. Heavy armored troopers poured out, weapons ready, scanning for targets. They weren't bounty hunters this time. They were silent, quick, and dressed in royal tech. The kind used by secret units. The kind that didn't leave witnesses. Nara clutched the crystal close. If they get this, it's over. They'll erase everything again. Jaren aimed his rifle and whispered, "We don't let them." The battle was fast, brutal. Jaren covered the front, drawing their fire while Nara moved like a ghost through the smoke blades in her hands, striking fast and disappearing. Again, she didn't fight like a survivor anymore. She fought like a warrior, like someone who remembered what she was trained for. One by one, the soldiers fell. But then a fourth ship landed, and from it stepped something worse. A tall, armored figure, with glowing red eyes, walked slowly toward them, his voice cold and calm. "Subject 9. The voice said, "Return. What belongs to the throne?" Nara stepped forward, blood on her arms, but her back straight. "You betrayed the throne. You destroyed the Queen. She's dead," the voice said. "And so are you." Jaren fired, but the shots bounced off the figure's shield. It stepped forward, grabbing Jaren and throwing him hard against the wall. Jaren groaned, pain rushing through his chest. But he still raised his weapon. Again. "Stay back," Nara shouted. "You want the truth? Then hear it." She lifted the crystal high, and it lit up, casting a bright light around them. The figure froze, its systems flickering. The light showed a memory, not just sound, not just vision, but feeling. The truth of what happened. The Queen's final orders, the names of the traitors, the crimes committed behind closed doors. The soldiers who were still standing dropped their weapons, some stepping back, confused, ashamed. The armored figure snarled and lunged at Nara, but she didn't run. She stood firm and whispered, "You don't own me anymore." And then Jaren's voice broke through the storm behind her. "I'm with you, Nara. Always." That one sentence stopped her heart for a moment, not because of fear, but because it was the first time in years someone had said it without wanting something in return. The armored figure struck, but Jaren moved fast, blocking it with his own body, taking the hit and firing point blank into its chest. The figure stumbled back and exploded in fire, the last of the attackers falling with it. Silence returned. Nara ran to Jaren, catching him before he fell. her hands pressing to his bleeding shoulder. "You idiot," she whispered. "You shouldn't have done that." He grinned weakly. "I told you. I'm with you." Her fingers trembled as she healed the wound with a med shot. Her eyes locked on his face. "You stayed when no one else did. Always," he said again, his voice weak but true. And for the first time since her world ended, Nara believed someone meant it. Slave, no more. The moon eyeless. 3 was quiet now. Smoke rising from the burned ground, the enemy ships reduced to broken metal. The bodies of royal traitors lying in dust and ash. But Nara stood tall among it all. Her cloak torn her arms, bruised, and her hands still holding the glowing black crystal close to her chest. Jaren sat on a rock nearby, bandaged and breathing slowly, his shoulder still sore but healing with each hour. Thanks to the med shot, he watched her as if seeing someone completely new. Not a slave, not a lost girl, not a broken thing, but a warrior reborn. The crystal pulsed in her hands with soft light, showing the memory again and again. The last moment of the queen alive, the command she gave, the secret list of betrayers and the hidden name at the top. Nara whispered it quietly for the first time. The current emperor. Jaren's eyes widened. "You're saying the man ruling now is the one who betrayed your queen?" She nodded. "That's why they kept me alive. They couldn't kill me without risking someone discovering the truth. And they couldn't let me speak either. So they silenced me with collars, chains, and fear. But you're not afraid now," Jaren said. "No," she replied. "I'm angry." She looked down at the place where the traitors had tried to take her again, where they had failed again, and then she stood straight and strong. "I'm going to expose them all." Jaren walked over, slowly steadying himself as he spoke. "And I'm going with you." "You don't have to," she said softly. "You already gave more than I deserved." He shook his head. "You deserved more than anyone ever gave you, and I'm not walking away now." She smiled just a little, and for the first time, it wasn't forced. It wasn't broken. It was real. They returned to the ship together. The sky over the moon now filled with stars. The ship's engines hummed quietly, ready to take off again. But before they left, Nara placed the black crystal inside a hidden panel on the ship's wall, locking it in with her handprint and sealing it with a password known only to her. And now Jaren. They couldn't let it fall into the wrong hands again. As they rose into the sky, Nara sat beside Jaren in the co-pilot seat, her fingers resting near his on the controls. "So, where now?" he asked. "We find the rebels," she said. "There are still those who follow the old bloodline, those who believe in justice, not control." "Do you trust them?" he asked. "I don't know," she said. "But they're our best chance at spreading the truth across the galaxy." She leaned back in her seat and closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in slowly, letting her body finally rest. "When I was first taken," she said after a pause, "I thought the worst part was the pain, but it wasn't." "What was it?" he asked, forgetting who I was. She said, "Forgetting that I had a name, that I had choices, that I had the right to say." No, Jaren looked at her then and said, "You're not that girl anymore." "No," she replied. "I'm not." They flew for hours, passing dead planets and empty space stations until finally they reached the outer rim, where rebel signals were known to flicker weak and broken like whispers in a storm. Nara picked one up, a signal coded in the old Royal Guard dialect, one only she could understand. They followed it to a frozen moon covered in ice and snow, and hidden under it was a rebel base protected by cloaks and codes and hope. As they landed, soldiers in old armor surrounded the ship, weapons raised, until one saw Nara step out. He dropped his weapon and knelt. "Commander." "Nara," he said, "we thought you were dead." She helped him stand. Not dead, just silenced. They took her inside to speak with their leaders. Jaren followed close behind, quiet, but watchful. Inside a small chamber, Nara stood before a group of tired fighters, rebels who had seen too many losses and too few victories. She lifted her chin and said, "I have the Queen's final memory, her true voice, the proof of betrayal, and the list of names." They stared at her in silence. Then one said, "You were a slave. We saw the reports. How can we trust you?" She didn't flinch. "Because I broke my chains with truth, not hate. And I came back, not for revenge, but for justice." Another rebel stood slowly and said, "Then we follow you." Nara looked around the room at the people, who would soon rise beside her, and felt something deep in her heart. Not pride, not power, something else, freedom. As the rebels cheered quietly, a voice whispered behind her, "So what?" "Now," Jaren asked. "Now," she said. "We take back everything they stole. Not with blood, not with fear, but with the truth and with fire, if they still choose war." She turned to him and added softly, "But whatever happens next, I want you by my side." "Always," he replied without a pause. She reached out and took his hand for the first time without fear. And in that moment, she wasn't a prisoner anymore. She was a leader. She was herself. She was free. The wedding that shook a planet. The rebel base buzzed with quiet energy. Soldiers moved with purpose. Engineers prepared the signal towers, and everywhere eyes turned when Nara walked by. She wore no chains, now only dark silver armor, polished and restored from her old command days. Her head held high, as if she had never been broken. Jaren walked beside her, dressed in a simple black flight suit. No medals, no armor, just steady hands and watchful eyes. The humans and aliens around him nodded. With respect, they all knew what he had done. They knew he had stood between her and death more than once. Today wasn't a battle, though not yet. Today was something stranger. Nara stood in the center of the great hall where the rebellion's leaders had gathered, old warriors, former slave scholars, and young fighters who had never known the old queen, but had sworn to honor her memory. They all stood silent as she stepped forward and said in a clear voice, "I have the truth of what happened. The day the empire fell, and I will not keep it hidden." She placed the black memory crystal in the center of the platform and pressed her palm to it. Light poured from it, and the hall filled with images. The queen's final words, her warnings, the names of those who betrayed her. Gasps filled the room. The emperor's face appeared in the list, the current ruler, the man who had made the world believe Nara was a traitor and a slave. She stood tall, letting the truth speak for her. When the vision ended, no one moved at first. Then slowly, one by one, they knelt before her. Not as a queen, not as a commander, but as someone who had suffered and still stood. Someone who had been buried, but rose anyway. Later that night, in the quiet garden above the base, under the pale lights of 3 moons, Jaren stood waiting. He wasn't used to ceremony or crowds or quiet peace. But today, he didn't need to fight today. He waited for Nara. She walked toward him, wearing a simple white robe, not royal, not military, just pure, soft fabric glowing under the stars. Her hair braided with silver threads. Her eyes steady and shining. He smiled. "You look like someone who finally knows who she is." "I do," she said. "And I choose who I walk beside." The small crowd around them was made of rebels, friends, survivors, and even a few strangers who had followed her story through stolen broadcasts. A soft melody played from a string instrument nearby as Nara stepped onto the stone platform beside Jaren. An elder from the rebellion raised his voice. "This bond is not between slave and master, not between soldier and commander. This is between two who found each other in fire and chose love. overpower. Nara took Jaren's hand slowly, her fingers warm and strong. I was given to you, in chains, she said softly. But you didn't take me. You freed me and you waited for me to stand on my own before you walked beside me. Jaren nodded, and when I saw you, I didn't see weakness. I saw someone braver than I ever was. Someone who needed truth, not rescue. The elder handed them 2 rings, simple metal bands made from melted pieces of the chain that once held Nara. She took one and slid it onto Jaren's finger. With this, I choose you not because I owe you, but because I want you, she said. Jaren placed his ring on her finger with a small smile. And I walk with you not to lead, not to follow, but to stand beside you always. The elder smiled and lifted his hand. Then, by witness of stars and truth, I declare your bond complete. Cheers rose from the rebels. The garden filled with laughter and warmth. People clapped, smiled, and even cried. Those who had seen Nara at her lowest could not believe this moment was real. But it was. Later that night after the ceremony, Nara stood on the balcony overlooking. The frozen fields below her armor rested beside her, her robe dancing in the soft wind. Jaren stepped beside her, holding 2 cups of warm firefruit tea from the rebel kitchen. She took one with a smile. You always find a way to surprise me. He shrugged. Guess I still have a few tricks left. They sipped in silence for a moment. Then Nara asked quietly, Do you think they'll come for us again? Yes, Jaren said without hesitation. The Empire won't fall in a day. But it started shaking the moment you told the truth. And if they come, then they'll find more than just a girl in chains, Jaren said. They'll find an army who knows her name. Nara smiled and leaned her head gently against his shoulder. For the first time since the queen died, the stars above felt like home again. And in that quiet moment, a slave story ended and a new legend began. The end.